Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to a Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2 reaction and review. This one's going to be super fun. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're all having a marvelous week so far. I know I am, and I know today was made a lot better by this episode. Wow, what great vibes, what great atmosphere. And really, there's a lot to talk about. I've really enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far. I think as we get more episodes, of course, we will get more reveals. We will get into knowing more of these characters. Like today, we got to start off getting to know a little bit more about the U.S. agent John Walker. We got to see Isaiah Bradley, the first ever Black Captain America, which was amazing. And yeah, we're really going to talk about it all today here on this reaction and review. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I will be doing a lot more Marvel focused content here on the channel. I see a few people in chat. I see John Haymaker. What's going on, brother? I also see Robbie Meeson. And yeah, anybody else that's going to be joining. What did you guys think about the episode? I'm really curious as to what you guys would rate it out of 10. I don't know. I think I'd rate it. I think I enjoyed this one more than the first episode. I think there was a little more meat on the bones there for sure. The first episode was, I think, mostly a setup episode, right? Kate Pertinsky says Walker is slightly less punchable now. Yeah, there was a lot of reactions. I mean, we didn't even get to hear him speak in the first episode, but now we got to know him a little bit, right? We got to learn a little bit about his backstory. And it's not that he's not a likable guy. You know, as the episode goes on, we see a little bit of his ego flashing through. But it is really interesting to see that he's not a super soldier like the regular Captain America, right? And like Bucky and some of these other people that have been put through these super soldier experiments, like Isaiah Bradley. The first ever Black Cap that we got to see. That was really cool. We're going to talk about that. And his grandson is an interesting character as well. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, let's kind of like just start off with, I kind of wanted to start off with like my overall thoughts of the episode. I thought that it was a really good episode overall. Felt like kind of another setup episode, and I really feel like it's going to start to pop off in the next few episodes. But I felt like first of all, one thing I really noticed about the episode was the soundtrack. The music was really great in this episode. That really set up a lot of these more these tense moments, you know, where Bucky is stalking the Flagsmashers. And obviously, you know, there's these intense meetings and we have the therapy and all of that. So there was definitely some really nice music threaded throughout the episode. I felt that it complemented the scenes very well. And that's one thing I also enjoyed about WandaVision, but I particularly liked about this episode too, that I thought was really good. Yeah, and one thing that I really liked about this episode is kind of showing all of the different perspectives, right? Like often, you know, when we get superhero movies, we do get to see both sides. We get to see the perspective of the good guys and the bad guys, but everything is kind of just gray right now, right? We're seeing everybody kind of dealing with the post-blip life, right? Like how everybody has been affected after this huge war with one of the big three that was mentioned in this episode, right? Thanos can be considered an alien, I think. I don't know if he's technically a wizard. I don't think we can classify him as a wizard, but he had powers that a wizard might use, obviously, with the Infinity Gauntlet. And yeah, there was this like so many great moments in this episode. The dialogue was really fantastic. I think that obviously there were some very strong subjects that were explored that we'll talk a little bit about a little bit later. Of course, Sam got racially profiled, so we'll talk about that by the police. They didn't even recognize him without his goggles. And we also hear Isaiah Bradley's character, the first ever Cap, Black Cap. He spent 30 years in prison. I wonder if, you know, the White Cap would have got 30 years in prison. We kind of have to think about these things and these ideas that are being presented, because the episode definitely started off with that kind of propaganda tour that we got from Captain America, the First Avenger, right? And it even had that same song that it started with. So It was just really kind of odd to hear this the Star Spangled Man, kind of the guy with the plan, John Walker, talk about being Captain America. You can tell that he was obviously nervous about being Captain America. Like, yeah, he knows that he has huge shoes to fill. He knows that he's not a super soldier, but it is certainly interesting to kind of I'm not saying he's bipolar, but he's definitely got some. And I'm not saying it's wrong to be confident, but I think he's a little bit overconfident in some ways. Did you guys feel that too? I don't know. I felt like by the end of the episode, he was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit more, right? I felt like, hey, Amy Blackfire and also Crocodile Jaws. Crocodile Jaws gives it an 8.5. Yeah, but I really like, there was a lot of great callbacks in this episode. And the first one that I guess we can really talk about was hearing that music, the Star Spangled Man. That, we see John Walker kind of going on his own propaganda tour in a more modern age, right? Like we saw how back in Captain America, the first Avenger, how it was like they had to go on the road like a circus act. You know what I mean? And present this, we're fighting back against the Nazis. And now this is kind of this thing that's propagated. It's more, it's more produced, like the stuff you see on CNN and MSNBC. And not that I don't think that those networks can't be truthful, but we see that the Flagsmashers oppose this anti-nationalism idea. And that's why, like the idea of the people left behind. I think that is one of the big themes of this episode that was really explored. I really like that. Yeah, the GMA, doing an exposition on him was really interesting. We now see the reintroduction of that news network back into the MCU through Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 2. That was really interesting. What did you guys think about that interview? Did you feel like his answers were just like he was presenting himself as just politically correct because that's the new image of this government, Captain America, this US agent? That's kind of how I felt it came off, right? Like, we hear him talk with his kind of right-hand man, who we find out later in the episode has the name of Battlestar, Elliot Hoskins, who's a comic character. It's interesting to see him included in this episode as well. And them unsuccessfully fighting off the Flagsmashers. Well, what do you guys think about that interview? Did you get the vibe? Did you get interesting vibes from him? Like you felt like it was like, okay, like this is just part of the job. This is what I got to do. I got to present myself in this positive light. It felt like processed, kind of, like the idea of this new Captain America that's being pushed on to people, right? And the fact that, a big news network is picking it up, and kind of the things that we're seeing behind the scenes. One of the big themes of the episode is Bucky being pissed that he thinks that Sam made the wrong decision to give up the shield, right? Because he thinks that this guy isn't worthy of, the shield, and that shield stood for everything good about Captain America. This idea, and it fought against people like Hydra, It's clear though that he's pretty good with that shield though. I really enjoyed that part of the episode. Like we see him training. I mean, he's badass with it, right? He's sick with it. It's cool too, because we find out that he's not a super soldier, and that's kind of something that he's grappling with, and something that I think that we are going to be exploring more as the season goes on, right? Because he is unsuccessful in taking down the Flagsmashers. Like the Karli Morgenthau character, who we're going to talk about, just kicks his ass. Even kicks Bucky's ass, but to a more, larger extent, really just U.S. agent didn't cause any problems for her. So yeah, just really, like there was like Crocodile Jaws is saying like how serious is he taking this, right? Like this is obviously a very important thing to Bucky. Bucky is, he's Cap's best friend of all time, man. And Sam is someone that's very close with Steve, right? Like Steve literally gave him the shield because he thought he was worthy of taking on the Captain America mantle, right? So that was something that I found really interesting. Just like this, him, we see him later in the episode breaking out Bucky out of the police. He's like, he's flexing. He's kind of acting like, I don't want to use the word fuck boy, but you know what I mean? He's kind of acting like a douche. Yeah. So let's move on a little bit. We see Bucky obviously he's watching this in amazement. He's like, damn, like, I can't believe this is happening. And this is obviously pissing him off, right? Because he knows, the government can be corrupted, and he was part of Hydra and all these different things. And he knows that they might have ulterior motives, right? And like, he thinks that Sam never should have given up the shield. And we hear Sam, when Bucky and Sam reunite, specifically say the Flagsmashers. And this was mentioned in the last episode, but it's pretty interesting because the character of Karl Morgenthau in the comics is Flagsmasher. And now we have this gender swap version, Karli Morgenthau, that's presented in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I'm not opposed to the gender swap character. I think that this character is kind of a mesh of Songbird, because when we hear Karli go to the safe house, she goes, and that's kind of a signal to get into the safe house. I think that they're kind of going to be fusing these two characters together, I think. But yeah, it's really interesting, the Flag Smasher idea, right? Like, they have a new symbol that is being presented in opposition to this new Captain America symbol that's being pushed again by the American government, right? And we hear her have a really valid argument. We're fighting against the people that are getting forgotten. They feel like they're getting left out, right? The government cares more about the people that were blipped away than the people that are still there. So there's obviously this wealth gap. We see that there's still racism. That's another thing. We see that there's still these problems. They have, like, society hasn't moved on and evolved from the same problems that have been presented since the blip happened, right? And that's why, and that seems like to be the idea that this Karli Morgenthau Flag Smasher Songbird character is presenting to us. And that's why I really like this episode, is that they're presenting both John Walker at the start of the episode is they're trying to make us be more sympathetic with this character, knowing that he's not a super soldier, right? Like, it's going to be hard to be Captain America and not being a super soldier, right? Like, that is just, we see, like, for example, in that amazing fight scene, at the end of that fight scene, do you think if Steve Rogers were in that position that he would have got kicked off the transport? I don't think so, right? Even though he performed admirably, still got his ass kicked. So I could see this John Walker character, this U.S. agent character, the new Captain America. I don't even want to call this character Captain America because it just pisses me off. But I think that we could see, maybe in the next episode, he misses the Flag Smashers again, gets his ass kicked again, and then he's like, well, how am I going to deal with this? Me and my boy Battlestar couldn't even get Bucky and Sam to join us. And now we have to deal with these super soldiers, right? Because there's a bunch of them. So I could see this character going in a direction where he tries to get the serum, maybe. And because he seems like this person that has we talked a little bit about his ego, right? Like him being a little bit cocky. And I don't think he's the kind of person that should be taking the serum, right? And it's so interesting that the government chose this specific person, right, to be Captain America. I don't know. I think more and more as we move throughout the season, we will see that this guy is definitely not worthy. He will show traits that he's not balanced enough, and he's not he can't take on the stresses and just in general the physicality of being a superhero. I think John Walker is in on it. Not sure what it is, but he's got something to do with something. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? This he seems like someone that could be brainwashed by Zemo. We see Zemo come back at the end. Well, we see Zemo's face in the chessboard. Big foreshadowing there, right? The Bucky presenting the idea that Zemo knows Hydra and Zemo knows all of these organizations. That's what he knows. They have to go seek him out. And and that's the great thing about it too, because it's not that he's an unlikable character, but we can all empathize with the idea of cracking under pressure. I think we've all had situations in our lives where that we're like, oh my God, this is hard. You know what I mean? And imagine being presented with that every day. He's like, I don't really like doing this more political propaganda style presentation of Captain America. And Battlestar says, hey, that's part of the job, my man. Yeah, you can't just, this is part of the job. You get all the perks of being Captain America, but you got to deal with this too, So I'm agreeing with you, Kate, that I think the opening sequence did give us a good idea that the pressure might get to him, and he might, perhaps maybe give up the shield to Sam later. But Bucky said in the episode that like, hey, let's take it back, right? And Sam's like, no, we got to work with this guy. So it's interesting though. They did refuse his offer, which was interesting, right? They chose to not work with him. And then John Walker, the U.S. agent, the new Cap, says, hey, don't get in my way. That's a threat, right? And I don't necessarily know if I was not a super soldier that I would say something like that, especially to guys who were in the Avengers and literally saved the universe, right? And that's another, I think another -1 for this guy, his ego, right? It's like, oh my God, this guy is already like really, really like kind of almost abusing his power by saying that, you know what I mean? And I'm not like, he doesn't know Sam and Bucky on the personal level that they know each other, but still, you know what I mean? So that was definitely an interesting sequence for me and an interesting conversation. One thing that there was a lot of great comedy in this episode. We have, the mention of the big three, the androids, aliens, and wizards, which is super funny. And Bucky is kind of like refusing to acknowledge that, wizards are a problem. And then Sam's like, hey, what do you know about Gandalf, man? When Bucky says, like, who are you fighting, Gandalf? I love that. And then we find out there's a cool Easter egg that Bucky read The Hobbit back in 1937. That was a really cool exchange. We also get I really, really loved the plane sequence where they're talking about, what their plan is. That gave me Falcon's and Bucky's exits both really mirrored Cap's exit before he went to fight Batroc the Leaper back in Captain America Winter Soldier, right? That was kind of at the start of the movie then. And there was a lot of interesting callbacks to kind of moments that, both Bucky and Sam both kind of have some characteristics that Steve had, right? Some of the same characteristics. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. And what did you guys think of Sam calling Bucky a White Panther? Whew. There's definitely some strong, definitely some strong dialogue talking about kind of these racial divisions that we're still seeing in society now, right? Neomax says Walker said he never gets nervous until he met Bucky. And then Bucky like really calls, you're right. Bucky does call him out there. And he says, look very intense there, Walker. He senses that, right? Yeah, that was great, man. I love the banter. And Sam also, when they do their therapy session, he's like, hey man, like, I think that this is like me making the right decision. And you guys don't get to decide. Well, I decide, try to make my decisions for me. And then we see kind of that idea reinforced. And this was my favorite moment of the episode. We see the character of Isaiah Bradley and his grandson, Elijah Bradley, who is in the Young Avengers in the comics and is the character named Patriot. And we hear how terribly a superhero is treated. This guy was experimented on for 30 years and thrown in jail. Does anybody think that Steve Rogers, if he was in the same position, would have been held in jail for 30 years like that? I don't necessarily think so, right? Because this was in a obviously a different period where there's way. I mean, there's still bad racism now, but you know what I mean? Like, it was like way more focused and prevalent then. So I absolutely loved that scene. That scene, oh my goodness, that was knocked straight out of the park. We hear Bucky say, "Hey, let me in, dude. Tell your grandfather it's the guy from the bar in Goyang during the Korean War." That was so cool. And I love kind of those callbacks too, kind of to, touching on some moments, some more nefarious moments. Because we got to remember, Bucky was in Hydra, man. He was doing shit for Hydra, right? And going on missions. So kind of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, through telling this new story, they're planting all of these seeds and they're kind of cultivating this backstory of all these things that Bucky went through his 160 years. And that's why I think that the format of Disney Plus so far is so fantastic, because they can cultivate this backstory in the present time and give us kind of these nuggets from the past and really enhance the older movies that we saw in the MCU. Neomax says, I hope we get a flashback of Isaiah. Oh my God, yes. That would be so sick. I would love to see him fight in the present, because look at how he's still, I mean, he may be older, but man, that guy looks like he can kick some serious ass, right? It'll be interesting to see if he tries to get in the fight maybe, and maybe he's injured or killed, and then young Patriot, since he's his grandson, he somehow passed on his, through his experimentation with the super soldier serum that young Patriot has, some of that passed down to him through his genetics and whatnot. So it'll be really interesting to see, because I think they are going to explore some more of that, the alchemical side of the MCU. But I would love to see a flashback to Isaiah Bradley, the first Black Cap, kicking some ass, man. That would be sick. And I loved his performance, man. I really thought that he had a great performance. I thought that it was really valid. You could feel the raw emotion from him. Get out of my house. Do you know what they did to me? Look at how you got off, man. And you did all these bad things. And yeah, what a powerful scene. That was probably my favorite scene of the episode. And I'm really interested to see where they go with this character. Because I think that, I mean, obviously, I think they're setting up the Young Avengers for sure. Because we already got a little bit of Wiccan and Speed in WandaVision. And now we're getting the character of Patriot. And they're going to start to kind of, through Marvel Phase 4 setup. And maybe we do get, this is our next Avengers movie, the Young Avengers. Or maybe it's Phase 5. I don't know. Phase 4 is going to last a while, right? So yeah, that was one scene that was really powerful and really struck a chord with me, man. That was great. We also find out that this, while Bucky and Sam are on this mission to find the Flagsmashers, that is, they're trying to find out what exactly their movements are and what they're moving. We find out that Aaron Kellyman is playing the character of Karli Morgenthau, which is a gender swap version of the comic character Karl Morgenthau, who is the character of Flagsmasher from the comics. Now, the Flagsmashers are presented as this like terrorist group, this anti-nationalist group. But I actually thought she had a great performance in this episode. We see that sly smile with Bucky. Bucky was like, yo, this is a hostage. And then he gets his ass kicked by a little girl. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where they go with this, because there was this idea of this group having some sensibility, fighting against the same kind of societal issues that have existed before the blip, right? These kind of things that haven't been addressed, and these kind of the wealth gap, these corporations holding all this power in the world. The government not properly taking care of its people that were still alive, and ultimately, not snapped away by Thanos. But yeah, the character of Karl Morgenthau was in the comics son of a Swedish diplomat who basically wanted to do away with the symbols of nationalism. And It reminds me a lot of the line Baron Zemo says in all the trailers before the season. Like, I want to finish my work. I like the idea of kind of eradicating superheroes, eradicating that idea. So it'll be interesting to see, because we hear Bucky present the idea to Sam that Zemo is the guy they need to go connect with so they can deal with the Flagsmashers. Hey, what's going on, Lipbringers? So yeah, that was something that was super interesting to me. I like I said earlier, I think that they are going to be doing kind of a fusion of two characters. The Songbird, Karli Morgenthau being Songbird, and then the Flagsmashers being the organization, the kind of shell, the idea that she's leading. One thing that I did really like about that whole fight scene, though, was when Captain America, even though it's pretty cocky, he's like, Captain America is here. He kicked some serious ass with that shield, right? The fight scenes and the action so far have been really great. And I think a lot of people were worried that it was going to be too much action and not kind of enough of the dramatic emotional beats, but the dramatic emotional beats have hit hard so far, because there's some serious trauma there for Sam and for Bucky in both different ways. And then we see also kind of just like different traumas for Isaiah Bradley. Like, he was experimented on. He experienced racism. John Walker is kind of experiencing this intense pressure of having to be this new Captain America. Then we obviously feel the we can empathize with the idea of government and big business and people not taking care of people. And that's really what the Flagsmashers are standing for. They're fighting back against basically the government doing nothing to help the people. So I'm not saying that I'm aligned with the Flagsmashers, but I kind of understand some of their thought process and why they're acting the way they are. I also really loved after that fight scene that we saw, Sam and Bucky rolling around, and Bucky really kind of having this antagonist attitude towards Red Wing. That was super cool. And then we hear, Bucky says, "Oh, I'm sorry about Red Wing," and Sam says, "No, you're not." So a lot of great back and forth. I love the also the therapy scene where they both opened up. I thought that was some progress, though. They did make progress. Like, they were both honest. Like, Bucky was like, "Hey, man, you never should have gave up that shield, bro." Like, yeah. And then we hear Sam be honest about why he did what he did. But yeah, so a lot of really great emotional moments that stood out to me. And then we also get kind of that awkward conversation between Bucky, Sam, and Mr. Hoskins, Battlestar, who's definitely out of his league. Like, he's definitely like John Walker performed admirably, right? The new Cap, the new U.S. agent, performed admirably, but we see him getting saved. Like, John Walker throws the shield onto the road so he's not getting, wrecked, because those super soldiers kick their ass, man. One thing that is super interesting about this situation is it's implied that they stole the super soldier serum from the power broker, right? This power broker character. And this power broker character, Carl Malice, is a very interesting character. I'm wondering if this character will be merged with Zemo, or if he's working with Zemo. This Carl Malice character is basically kind of like a mad scientist that does these super soldier experiments like Hydra, has a lot of resources, and it looks like they're kind of at odds right now, right? But it'll be interesting to see if someone like Walker finds out some of this information from the Flagsmashers or this power broker character and gets manipulated. So I think there's going to be this really interesting twist somewhere where we find out that, even though Zemo is behind bars, he's still making chess moves. At least that's kind of how I felt it was implied by that visual cue we saw with the chessboard when we saw Zemo at the end of the episode. Neomax says, "I think Ross is a big part of the story as well. Also, Fury should have known about Isaiah. Hopefully we get those answers." Yeah, Thaddeus Ross, who is also a member of the Thunderbolts in the comics, and also that organization is founded by Zemo. Kind of this idea presenting themselves as superheroes, then obviously being this group of villains. I don't think that we'll get the Thunderbolts per se. We could get more of a group like Ultimatum, maybe. But the idea that he knows so much about Hydra and kind of how all of that works. I don't think getting Zemo out and them going to Madripoor, which I'm assuming is probably what's going to happen in the next episode. The island of Madripoor, where there's all sorts of terrorist organizations like Hydra and the Hand and mutants. It was rumored that, we could see maybe people like Omega Red or some of the X-Men on Madripoor, but there's like this dark criminal underworld on this island, and them going to work together. I mean, like, come on, that's going to end up badly, right? One thing I also really loved about this episode that was mentioned was Falcon talking about kind of, he mentioned Sharon Carter, right? And that, he and Sharon Carter were both profiled as kind of being these enemies of the state. And we know that she's going to be in Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's going to be, I think she's going to probably show up in the next episode, right? They probably wouldn't keep her out longer than that. But yeah, she's going to be an interesting character because she shares a really strong connection to both Nick Fury, SHIELD, and all of that, but also Steve Rogers, right? She was a love interest. And, Peggy Carter has a familial connection right there. And that's the person that Steve went back to marry, right? When he went to go experience that slice of life that Tony told him to go enjoy. So that's going to be kind of an interesting dynamic too, because I think for those of us that are here, most of us have watched all the trailers, and we know that she's going to be popping up, and she's going to have some interesting information when they pop up, right? And if she's observing things behind the scenes and she's on the run, sorry, I got thirsty there. But she might be monitoring the Flagsmashers or other terrorist organizations behind the scenes, right? Because there's been a lot more heat on these type of behind the scenes governmental organizations that support superheroes, right? And we know that the Sokovia Accords are probably going to pop up. That's a great point that you make, Neomac. Ross being, one of the main authors behind the Sokovia Accords. And we already saw Rhodey obviously kind of tell him to hit the road, when when all of them went to go seek him out when they were going to go do their kind of crazy mission in Endgame. So he's going to play a big role. And we know that that Sokovia, we know that that's going to play a role in Falcon and Winter Soldier 2, because we see the Sokovian Memorial in the trailer. And we know that's tied to Zemo because that's how he lost his family, and also Wanda as well. So that's going to be something that I'm really excited to see. Really, really excited to see. It's going to be interesting how they spin all of these different relationships, right? And it's going to be really interesting to see us get to know more about Zemo too, right? Like, he is one of the villains, even though he's did these terrible things. He lost his family. This is the sole reason behind him wanting to kind of burn everything down, right? I don't agree with his approach to things, but Neomac is right. Zemo lost his family, and we kind of see this presentation of these characters within Falcon and Winter Soldier, and trying to get us to empathize with the different sides of these characters, right? Because we're being presented, and what we're being shown is different sides of characters. We haven't got to see the more emotional. We have got to see more emotional moments with Bucky, I think, because he's a very, very conflicted character. But I think more Sam in this episode, very, very powerful emotional moments, right? Like, he's like, hey, like, why wasn't I told about this Black Captain America, man? Like, why didn't I know about this? Kind of feels like an erasure of history of sorts, So I really like that thread where they're going with that, and that strong talking point that they're continuing to thread through their first two episodes. It's going to be really interesting to see if we get maybe we get more therapy sessions in each episode. It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, like, hey, we're going to take a rain check on this, but them going on a mission and coming back, and then having to go to the therapy sessions because Bucky was arrested because he missed one, right? Like when Sam is racially profiled, they find out that Bucky has a warrant for his arrest, because not necessarily because he's committing terrorism like he used to, but because he's missed the therapy session. So it's going to be interesting to see how they present all of these relationships going forward, because I think everybody's kind of feeling each other out right now. Everybody's kind of in their own feelings, rightfully so. And yeah, like all the characters that have been presented so far, like you can kind of empathize with everybody's point of view and how they're feeling for the most part. I think I empathize the least probably with John Walker, the U.S. agent, because he's acting cocky and stuff like that. And I know his character from the comic book, so I'm maybe a bit more biased as to how I'm looking at him, because I think I'm like trying to think of like where he's going to end up later in future episodes, like what his character, what actions he will take. But it was certainly like that's what was so good. The writing was so good in this episode in presenting these themes, like these traumas that these characters are experiencing, and that's really affecting their decision-making process, right? Like how they're going about things in the world. And it's kind of like stun locking them in a way, in a bit, right? They in order to progress, they have to get by some of these issues, like, because it's holding them back in certain ways, right? Because they're not able to move on from some of these emotional traumas that they're experiencing. Yeah, so far I'm really, really, really impressed with Falcon and Winter Soldier, and overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed this one a little bit more than episode 1 because we got a little bit more meat on the bone here. But yeah, I thought it was a great episode. I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10 or an 8. I'm going to do a video tomorrow. I'm going to probably look at like 20, 25 Easter eggs maybe from the second episode, and I'll probably mix my breakdown in with that. And that'll be a fun video. That'll be like a 20-minute video or something. I'll be up bright and early trying to get all my stuff ready for that one. I already started a nice little script and document for that, and some wicked snapshots. The filmography and the cinematography is so good in the show. I really spoke about that in WandaVision, how I thought that was a highlight for me. But I just went through the episode in slow-mo and just like, snapshotted a couple moments that, because like when you're watching an episode of television, like some things just fly by so fast, right? Like you're watching like fighting going on, and like there's so many beautiful shots that you miss. And that's one thing I caught myself doing after this episode, because I watched it a couple times. Watch it back a little bit slower, and then I was like trying to look like, of course I'm like searching for Easter eggs and stuff like that. But yeah, Neomex says, do you think Walker is a super soldier? And yeah, not yet. I could see him seeking out. I see a scenario where he becomes frustrated with not getting the wins. You know what I mean? Not getting the W's, because what he took is an L. He took a loss. And I think if that happens again, that might break his more fragile ego, because he's got a lot of pressure on him to become this winner, because Captain America won a lot of fights, right? He helped win a lot of fights. So it'll be interesting to see how, I think he's definitely going to crack under pressure. I mean, they're kind of they're planting the seeds for that. But I think that he could end up taking the super serum, him and Battlestar maybe. And then we have Falcon and Bucky fight against U.S. Agent and Battlestar. And I think that that's possibly a scenario where we could see Sam get the shield back, right? Because we do see in the trailers that he does have the shield back at some point, and he has given it up. So it'll be really interesting to see if maybe that's sooner than later. I still think that Zemo is going to be the main antagonist of the series, but I'm super interested to see if like Zemo's working with Batroc, what kind of other characters we meet on the island of Madripoor, because we know that's like a hub for criminal activity. Groups like Hydra, the Hand. Pardon me. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm really curious. Like, what was your favorite moment of the episode, chat? Like, what is something that really stood out to you? Like, what was your favorite moment of the episode, and what do you think so far? Because I think that we can't really judge this series too much right now because we don't have all 6 episodes out. And when the whole series is presented, I think that we'll look at the series and we'll be able to kind of judge how good or bad it was. But so far, I think that there's a really compelling story. I think shit's gonna hit the fan at a certain point, kind of like it did with WandaVision. These first 2 episodes felt in a way a little bit like in the first couple of, like the first 4 episodes of WandaVision. And then it really popped off at the end of episode 4. And then episode 5 and 6 and 7 kind of like the stakes just kept on getting raised each episode. I kind of feel like that's going to like the intensity will only ramp up with each episode in Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? Because we only got 6 episodes, and yes, the episodes are longer, but holy, right? But yeah, I've loved it so far. I want to be live with you guys and kind of give my reaction and review. And tomorrow I'll be dropping my episode breakdown. We'll do an Easter egg video, and then we'll continue on with talking about, we'll do some separate videos for the character of Karli Morgenthau, the Flagsmasher leader, and who I think could possibly be this fusion character of Songbird and Flagsmasher. And yeah, we'll just continue to make Marvel content here on the channel. I'm having so much fun covering Marvel right now. I absolutely love this format for Marvel. I think that this is just an ingenious way to build the backstory and mythology of these characters that weren't given feature films like, Falcon and Bucky, and just give them more screen time, give their characters a chance to evolve, and really just expand the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse into the greatness that it can be. Not that it's not great already, because this is basically the #1 movie franchise out there. But whew. Yeah, I think I agree with you too, Neomac, when Bucky said if Cap was wrong about that, Sam, that means he was wrong about him. That was deep as hell, man. But yeah, overall, I love the emotional beats of the story. I'm really loving it so far. I wanted to come chat with you guys for a little bit. And yeah, let me know what kind of videos you want to see on the channel for Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think I'll do some videos in the Power Broker and kind of some of the villains that we're going to see. Maybe some of these other groups that could pop up. Maybe I'll do one on the island of Madripoor. It's probably going to pop up in the next episode. But yeah, we'll do some prediction videos. We'll do some character focused videos. And yeah, we'll just continue to celebrate this amazing new format that Disney Plus has for telling stories from the Marvel Comics and the Marvel MCU. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. If you do want to see more Marvel videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on my future videos. Hit that like button. You can find my social media in the description of the video. If you want to kind of just connect with me and, talk about a theory or subject that you would like me to cover on the channel. Thanks for joining, everyone. You guys have a marvelous Friday night. It was a pleasure being here with you. I'll see you